Thank you for stopping by my channel. In my previous video, I highlighted key moments from a 2-hour interview with Brian Gray, the former owner of Leaf, and Bill Mastro, the founder of Mastro Auctions. That video covered how Bill acquired the infamous T206 Honus Wagner card that currently graded PSA-8, and what happened to the rest of the collection that came with the card, and how the Wagner was trimmed, and how these two collecting legends view card trimming in the hobby. In this part 2 of the interview, the focus shifts to the background of the T206 set and what happened to the Honus Wagner card after Bill sold it to another buyer. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't watched part 1 yet, it may be a good idea to check that out first before diving into part 2.
I'm going to skip forward a little bit, only because we're back actually, because we can talk more in a future show about the auction business and how the things that go with that. A lot of people have heard stories about what went with that. That's not important today. What I really want to talk to you about the most, besides the fact I know your story already, I love you, but the card, because the card is, I will say, and again, the card being that for people who don't know, the Honus Wagner T206, the finest graded copy, PSA card 000001, the original graded card that the entire grading foundation, the entire business of grading cards was built on, the most recognizable sports memorabilia item in history. People who don't collect cards still talk about the Honus Wagner card. They talk about 2 cards from my experience, 3 cards: the Mantle rookie, the Wagner, and the Jordan rookie. People who don't know cards know those 3 cards, but the Wagner being the one, the Grail, the Holy Grail, as your friend at Sotheby's put it. And I think, again, I'm not trying to build it up too much because it really is. I think it's the greatest story of the hobby that has never been completely accurately told by the one who can provide a first-hand account. Every version we've heard, and listen, the card as a book was entertaining. I'm pretty confident it's not 1,000% historically accurate, or even a high percentage. And it was entertaining. And that's our account of the stories we've had. We've heard the stories through that, and we've heard it through word of mouth, but we've never heard the horse tell us the first time you touched that card, what it looked like, what it was, how it became what it was, which is the part people are sensationalists want to hear, like how it became what we see today, and then what happened afterward and the impact it had on you and all those things. So this is the part where I do something very rare and I shut up. And this is all you now. I want you to, in free prose, be the great storyteller you are, and then I'll follow up with questions at the end. I don't know how to take myself off the screen, or I would. I'm just going to open my mouth and shut up, which is very hard. So I want you to tell the story as you've always wanted to tell it. Have you ever told the story like in a big public way?
Oh, not anywhere publicly. I mean, people knew. I mean, even back in '86 when I got the card, I never hid the fact that what I did. I mean, I really didn't. People try to make it out to be like I purposefully did something deceitful. I didn't do anything deceitful. I think what's important there's this, first of all, the history of the Honus Wagner card, not just the card, but the fact that how did it become the Mona Lisa? How did it become the upside down airplane? How did it become that? Well, I think some collectors, not a lot of them, know who Jefferson Burdick was. Jefferson Burdick, if Alexander Cartwright was the founder of the father of baseball, Jefferson Burdick was the father of card collecting, not just baseball card collecting, but card collecting. Jefferson Burdick spent his entire life collecting cards, and he had a vision for his card collection that he wanted it to be in the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. So he saw cards the way you and I see cards. They were little mini masterpieces, all kinds of cards from all over the world. And he amassed millions and millions and millions of cards. But he also felt that it was important at some point to catalog them in some way, as best he could without checklists, so to speak. But he put together the American card catalog. And the first one was produced, I believe, in 1939. And the last one was printed in, I think, 1960. And he would update it as he went along, as he came across new sets, new cards. And of course, today we know that if you end in 1960, there's nothing after that. But there's lots of things he discovered as he went along and added them to the catalog. The Wagner card, very early on, was listed as the most, in the appendix in the back of the catalog, as the most valuable card. Yes, it was a baseball card, but it was also the most valuable card. And I don't remember what he first put it in there as. It might have been $50 or something, which was.
Now, let's talk about Jefferson Burdick. He was a true pioneer in the world of card collecting. He donated his entire collection to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. His collection includes sports and non-sports tobacco cards, inserts, postcards, and posters. Jeff even published his own catalog, the American Card Catalog, which was the first organized guide for collectors. He was the first to create a checklist for the white border set and officially labeled them as T206. As you can see here, Jeff donated his Honus Wagner card to the museum. The condition of the card would likely receive PSA-4 or PSA-5 based on the front image. It is not clear whether the card is actually pasted on a scrapbook. That may cause back damages. Anyway, in terms of its quality based on the front image, it would definitely rank as one of the top 5 surviving Wagners.
More than I have to interrupt and ask a question. So you think his decision, what do you think drove that decision? Because it's part of one of the most important sets of all time. It's got some incredible turn of the century players in it. And there are definitely guys like Cobb and Cy Young, that are arguably much more important
I
outside.
don't know what drove his decision.
So
Let me ask you something, okay? You've been all over the world. I'm sure you've seen the Mona Lisa. Why would the Mona Lisa be the most famous artwork? I think it's the ugliest thing in the world.
Hey, trust me, I've seen worse. But this sounds like a car chatting over a beer. I've seen worse, but it's not a size that is magnificent. And I've seen things in museums where I look and I sit there for hours.
Oh my gosh, you're like it overwhelms you. But somewhere along the line,
to it once someone points it out.
okay,
It's fascinating. It's a snapshot of a woman who's not particularly extraordinary in any way, shape, or form, except it captures an essence of like normal.
somebody decided somewhere along the line that was the artwork in the whole world that should captivate the whole world.
So you're saying you believe Jefferson Burdick is the person?
He decided the
Wagner
Wagner
is
card was the card.
And what year was that? Would you think that he started?
Back in the 30s. Yeah.
In the 30s, in the 1930s.
Yes.
He decided that was the card.
He decided that was the card. He, in his whatever his knowledge was, or whatever his information was, he decided that was the card.
Did he probably came out and said, "This is why I think that's the card"?
Not that I know of.
These stories about tobacco and these stories about
That's
none of that stuff had to do.
we know today that's
Philippines.
that's ridiculous. Okay, Honus Wagner, there's a 1948 leaf card.
48 leaf.
There's
Probably-
tobacco.
I have that card. I bought it for that reason.
Now, it wouldn't surprise me if he wasn't paid for his use of it.
Sure.
But that I don't think that was. I don't think we'll ever.
The collector thinks that's the story. It's so short because they pulled it from production because
I don't think we'll ever know. Okay,
No, it's
like, we're never going to know. That fact is probably never going to come to light.
But to me, anyone watching this, it was worth the hour so far to hear that card. There was a point in time where that card was anointed, like the Mona Lisa, like the pick your ass at the upside down airplane, as the ultimate in its space.
Yes, and
The fact that the 1930s, no
Jefferson
one knew that it was the 1930s. I will guarantee it. Everybody thought this was sometime in the 80s or 90s or when it became PSA-8. They all think it's that point where it became iconic. They have no clue that it was 60 years before that it was anointed. And that to me is fascinating, and it adds an aura to the card. Like, did he know something we didn't know? Or did we just all buy into it after the fact? Kind of interesting.
Well, I mean, God knows nobody knew more about cards than Jefferson Burdick. I mean, he was for decades mailing cases and cases of cards to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and he spent untold amounts of time in the museum mounting his cards. When they were all worth nothing, okay, he mounted them in these huge albums. He literally glued them into the albums. Okay, the Wagner card that he had was glued into an album. Right?
They're truly archived.
Yes, everything was
like archived photography. You put them into the binder, and
And then he got done.
back then it was different.
He got done in, I don't know, 59 or whatever, and he left the museum and he died shortly afterwards. His life's work was done. Okay, that was Burdick's life's work, was to collect cards, not just baseball cards, postcards, trade cards, all kinds of cards from all over the world, and catalog them and leave it in albums in the museum. And you can by appointment, you can go and see the Burdick collection. You can't see it all because you have to tell them exactly what you want to see. But there's thousands of albums that he spent his life cataloging and putting together.
Well, that's my happy trip. I'm just letting you know now. I want to see some piece of that collection because honestly, Dr. Beckett was one of my mentors, and his contribution was substantial in terms of the widespreading of this information. And as a kid, I always thought Dr. Beckett was the guy until I heard of Jefferson Burdick. And I heard about him in 1988 or 89, and then I realized, oh my God, my hero's still my hero. But he's one of my heroes because of what he did making it mainstream. But holy cow, the idea that we can that there was someone before that 50 or 60 years predating him who did the legwork when it was not for the money, it was not for the glory, it was for the love of it. That to me is mind blowing. So I'm going to quit talking. I told you in this interview I would quit talking. I'm done. Continue. I just want to say that was so important what you just said because almost no one knows how the card generally became the card.
Yeah, I mean, think of it like this. Okay, and then of course one of my when I sold him the Wagner card, Jim Copeland out in California, he became.
This is not the card that we call the card. It's a
This
card.
is the card. Yes.
Okay.
I bought it in 1986. I know we're going to go back over this.
Yeah.
I bought it in 1986.
It predates all the things we know.
Yes, and
When you sold Copeland the card,
I had every intention of keeping it because I wanted it for me. I loved it, and yet all of a sudden, Greg Buzino calls me up and says, "Hey, I got a guy in California. He'll pay $110,000 for that card." And I'm thinking, I mean, I know it sounds ridiculous, but $110,000. Most entire people's collections weren't worth $110,000.
staggering amounts of money.
Staggering amount of money. Yeah. And so I flew out to California. I met him. He and I hit it off. He wanted to buy other things. I became his guy. I flew all over the country. I went to everything and offered him just immense amounts of things. He had great taste. I never offered him things that were not in his realm of taste. And he built up one of the most magnificent collections in the country. Well, all of a sudden, in California, in San Luis Obispo, a baseball card shop owner named Rich Gove, you probably heard of him. He had an early shop. His dad was manning the shop one day. Someone got off the train, shot and killed his dad, and robbed the store. And Jim Copeland's wife became extremely paranoid that they had this huge, high-profile collection in their house that everyone knew about, and she wanted him to get rid of it.
Oh.
And I said, "Wow!" I said, Jim, we
spent years doing this.
Years.
Basically.
build this thing. Here we are now, and now you want to get rid of it. I said, okay. I had a childhood friend at Sotheby's. His name was Robert Woolley. He's passed on now. He was a dear friend, and I went to Woolley because he'd always said to me, he said, Master William, if you ever come up with just the right collection, maybe Sotheby's would do it. And I'm like, yeah, right, Woolley. So I called Woolley. He flies out to California with me. He's a vice president at Sotheby's. By the way, Woolley is the one who coined the phrase "Holy Grail" for the Wagner.
Did not know that. That's awesome.
When he auctioned it off, he was the auctioneer. The day that it was auctioned off at Sotheby's, he was in the box. And he said, and now the Holy Grail. He had a British accent. He was great. It was incredible. And we went to Copeland's house and he said, I love it. I want to do it at Sotheby's. And that was it. And that was in 1990. And I got the whole collection ready. I drove it across country to Sotheby's. I spent the entire year living out of the Mark Hotel in New York. And we did the first Sotheby's auction in 1991, which, of course, as we all know, is unbelievable.
That's it for now. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to watch part 1 of the interview as well. Thanks for watching.